It's a beautiful day here in New Zealand because it's spring and the sun is shining. And today I'm going to talk to you about boundaries. So this was a whole new experience for me, boundaries. Maybe you're like me and you don't know what boundaries are. Well, you may have heard of them, but what are they? What do they mean to us? And what are my boundaries? So there's different areas of boundaries. There's your personal space. There's thought boundaries, possession boundaries, sexual boundaries. There's your time boundaries. That was a big one for me. And energy boundaries. And then there's your culture, religion, family, that kind of side of things. I think they're more ones you've inherited. The thing is with boundaries is we're not really aware that we've got them. I mean, some of you are, and that's great. But for those of you who are here today because you're not really aware of your boundaries, or you maybe vaguely are, this is what we're going to talk about. Because why do we need boundaries? Actually, they're way, way, way more important than you might think. Firstly, or the top two things are they're really important with your relationships and connecting with others. And they're really important for your self-care. And what happens when we learn what our boundaries are and we start to put them in place, it actually builds your self-esteem. It actually helps you create your identity, part of who you are. And your boundaries are there to protect you. Who is going to protect you? Who is your number one protector? It is yourself. And so you need to put your boundaries in. Some of us, like me, haven't developed our boundaries. This could be for several reasons, but neither here nor there, because here we are today and we're going to look at developing our boundaries. Might be a little bit scared because when we start to put them in place, it's us separating ourselves from others. It's actually saying, I am separate. I have my own identity. I am me, and this is important. So you don't actually have to follow what everybody else wants and says and thinks. And so you've got to be really, really aware of others and their perspectives. And they're going to try and push their ideals onto you. So it's going to be tricky when you start this. So let's move on now into how you will start to define your boundaries. So I've got 5 tips today. It's going to be a process. So you don't think it's all going to happen in one day, but you need to just start. Okay, so number 1, start by looking at your behaviors. Look at what you've done and how you've behaved in certain situations. And you can do this looking like way back. You can pick an event that happened and you can look at it and you can think, well, what would my boundaries have been? Because what happens is it's highlighted when people cross your boundaries. You know it because you feel uncomfortable. You might not have been aware now you might not have been aware then that that's what it was, but you'll know now that that's what it is. So when you feel uncomfortable when something happened, somebody crossed a boundary. So have a look at your behavior, look at your discomfort and how you're feeling, your physical feelings, everything around it. And then you'll want to work out what boundary was that crossing. So tip number 2 is to look at your values. So quite often it will be also that it crossed one of your top values. Okay, I say focus on your top 5 core values. Now, if you don't know them, we've developed an app and that will just make it easier. It's a wonderful ranking system and it just does it all automatically for you. So it takes you through the process. So your core values, this is what's important to you. You want to live your life being aware of your values so you can follow through on your values, because that will bring you the most comfort. Number 3, you have rights. You have the right to have, to say no, this is what I want. And I know that's hard for us who've taken everybody else's perceptions and thoughts into account first before ours. This is uncomfortable. So that leads us to number 4. Give yourself permission to do this. Say, I I'm important. You know, I am the most important person to me, so this matters. So give yourself permission. And then this leads us on to number 5, is to start to feed them in. Start to be firm about them. Go one step at a time. And what you'll do is the way you treat yourself, this will be conveyed to others. So they will start to learn to treat you in this same way. So one step at a time. So say it's a time boundary. I'll use that one because that's one of my big ones. You know, it's not okay that someone turns up half an hour late and doesn't even tell me or doesn't even turn up. Time's important to me. And when I make an arrangement with someone, I actually plan my day around it. I find it disrespectful. So I will gently let them know. Like, my behavior, since I've known this boundary, starts to convey either openly, you can say it quite bluntly, you know, nicely, but be clear about it. Suggest that next time, you know, could they just let you know? And make it quite clear. Like, we used to have a thing in England where, you know, you waited 10 minutes. If the person wasn't there, then you didn't wait any longer. I don't know what's gone on over the years. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, I'll hang around. Oh yeah, they'll just turn up late. And it's quite disrespectful of my time. And that sends a message to myself that them and their time is more important than me. So have a think about that. I'll just run through those one more time. So firstly, look at your behavior. Look at what's gone on. Look at how you felt when you felt uncomfortable. Relate it to your values. What's important to you. Know that you have rights to protect yourself. Give yourself permission to do this, permission to be important, and then start to adhere to the boundaries yourself and get the message over to others and be firm about it. And it will be uncomfortable to start with, but take one step at a time. It's also noteworthy to be aware of other people's boundaries, and that might help you. Watch other people. What are their boundaries? How do they convey them? Get different ideas. I'll tell you an area where boundaries are really important, and that's with relationships. I've actually got a list here. I've actually got a list here of healthy boundaries in a relationship and unhealthy boundaries in a relationship. So healthy boundaries. Be and feel responsible for our own happiness. Number 2, have and accept that friendships exist outside our relationships. Well, that one's to do with your partner relationship. So I think a lot of these are talking about your partner, but don't forget that relationships can be friendships and family as well. Number 3, ensure you have open and honest communication. You need to feel that you can be open and honest. Respect differences in our partner to us. Everybody's different. Ask honestly what is wanted. And accept endings and move on. And the next list is unhealthy boundaries in a relationship. And these include when we feel incomplete without our partner. When we rely on our partner for our own happiness. When we are playing games and manipulating. When we experience jealousy. When we feel unable to express what we want. And when we feel unable to let go. That's quite a lot to think about there. So I'm just going to summarize again. Boundaries, really important for us, for our self-care, for our self-esteem, and for our identity. You will find, I've been through this process, and yes, it is a process, and you do it consciously to start with, and you define what's important to you, and then you start to put it in place. And then everybody else you'll find that they'll start to respect you and your boundaries too. If you've got any questions, just let us know. I wish you luck with that. It's a wonderful process to go through, and it will really help you, and it will make you feel more secure in yourself. Have a good week. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.